The people and events that enter one's life. Xiefeng, January 27th, 2023. Translation edited by Chinyu. Some say, the people and events that enter our lives are there to fulfill us. I say that the true, good, beautiful, loving, trustworthy, and sincere individuals and events that come into our lives are there to fulfill us. Conversely, the fake, evil, ugly, hateful, deceitful, and hollow individuals and events that enter our lives are there to pull us towards hell. Dejin Celestial believes that if the viewpoint, the people and events that come into our lives are there to fulfill us is invalid, is incorrect, consequently, the Chanyuan value of the world is faultless. All faults lie within us is also invalid and mistaken. She further explains that beautiful things can fulfill us because a part of our soul is inherently good and kind. Similarly, ugly things can also fulfill us as they reveal the parts of our soul needing rectification. We no longer oppose the external world but introspectively correct ourselves. In doing so, the fulfillment gained in that moment stands firm. Dejin Celestial's inclination to present different or even opposing viewpoints, stemming from thoughtful analysis, deserves recognition and praise. Only truths entirely comprehended can become guiding principles and beliefs one consciously and willingly acts upon in their life's journey. Any truth not understood, regardless of its correctness, becomes a stepping stone easily discarded when faced with personal interests and turmoil. Regarding whether all the people and events that come into our lives are there to fulfill us, I've analyzed and negated this perspective in my article. Are the people and events that come into your life meant to fulfill you? Now, let's discuss whether rejecting this viewpoint also rejects the Chanyuan value of the world is faultless. All faults lie within us. Old Wang called Little Lu, informing him of a quick opportunity to amass wealth. Excitedly, Little Lu requested a meeting. After the meeting, Old Wang advised Little Lu to sell his house to invest in the Overnight Wealth Global Financial Company, promising a doubling of profits within a year with a $100,000 investment. Overwhelmed by excitement, Little Lu invested $1 million, dreaming of turning it into $2 million in a year, so that he no longer needs to work, but merely to reap profits. However, a year later, not only did Little Lu not gain any profit, but he could not even retrieve the initial investment. The Overnight Wealth Global Financial Company had collapsed, and the CEO vanished with everyone's investments. Now, we must ask, are the people who come into our lives there to fulfill us, or do they lead us into suffering? Furthermore, where does the fault lie? Is it with the Overnight Wealth Financial Company, Old Wang, or is it within Little Lu himself? So, Dejin Celestial, in presenting such a straightforward example, do you believe that rejecting the viewpoint that the people and events that come into our lives are there to fulfill us simultaneously rejects the value of the world is faultless? All faults lie within us? Clearly not. The Overnight Wealth Global Financial Company is not at fault. They indeed amassed wealth overnight. Old Wang is not at fault. He gained some benefits. The fault lies within Little Lu, blinded by greed, wanting something for nothing, wanting the moon. Beautiful things can fulfill us, ugly things can also fulfill us. This is Dejin Celestial's perspective, and I admit it's valid. Many ugly things can serve as negative examples, teaching us how to properly handle the people and events that come into our lives. In this regard, ugly things can fulfill a person. For instance, Old Wang's arrival and the investment fulfilled Little Lu by teaching him a lesson. He no longer dreams of getting rich overnight, but lives a grounded life. Yet, I ask the reader, do you wish to be like Little Lu, losing everything? Do you want such an ugly event to fulfill you? If you do, then we're not on the same wavelength. It's futile to say more. I can only wish that ugly people and events accompany your life extensively, fulfilling you. If you do not, then why not? Didn't you say that ugly things can also fulfill you? If ugly things can fulfill you, why do you not welcome them daily? Evidently, ugly people and events don't fulfill us. They corrupt us. Many people, driven by ugly people and events, commit suicide. Do we then believe that these ugly people and events finally fulfilled those individuals by leading them to suicide? Should we be grateful to the ugly people and events? Can beautiful people and events lead someone to suicide? Remember, ugly people and events only corrupt, not fulfill. If one cannot grasp this fundamental understanding, barbarism, fatuity, ignorance, and darkness will accompany their life journey. Why seek light, civilization, justice, kindness, or paradise? Hell is so ugly. Why not dwell there since even the ugly can fulfill you? 当你执着于自己的观点正确时，矛盾诞生了。When you cling to the correctness of your viewpoint, contradictions arise. Xiefeng, May 29, 2023. Translation edited by Qinyu. Have you ever experienced this? Working together with others, facing a decision, where you staunchly support Plan A while others insist on Plan B. If both refuse to compromise, conflicts arise. Anger and negative emotions swirl like a tornado, leaving both parties feeling depressed and joyless for days on end. Why is the divorce rate so high nowadays? One primary reason is when each side believes they are right and adamantly refuses to yield, eventually leading to parting ways. In business partnerships or companies, closures often arise due to partners rigidly adhering to their views, refusing to compromise. Even between nations, divergent viewpoints without compromise escalate to disagreements or even cold wars. Wherever people gather, whether in partnerships of two or collaborations involving hundreds or even tens of thousands, if everyone clings to their own views without compromise, conflicts and clashes are inevitable. Therefore, we find that those fervently clinging to their viewpoints are the ones who spark conflicts and discord, preventing themselves and their collaborators from working harmoniously together. From this, we can conclude that those who cling to their viewpoints lack understanding, reason, open-mindedness, and possess low emotional intelligence. The ones who make others happy, joyful, and free while working together are the ones with high emotional intelligence, the ones who understand reason, the ones who comprehend life's principles, the extraordinary individuals. How can one ensure that others are happy, joyous, and free while working with him? In a task, whoever is responsible has the final say. Even if you are right 1,000 times and the person in charge is wrong 1,000 times, you must abide by their decision. No doubts, no entanglements, no silent protests, no passive resistance, just wholehearted cooperation. This leads to mutual happiness. If there is no designated leader in a collaboration, when someone proposes a plan instead of discussing it, respond with, "All right, we'll do it your way." This avoids the birth of conflict, and if things go wrong, the one suggesting the plan shoulders the blame. Respecting others means not clinging obstinately to one's own opinions. Insisting on others following your ideas is disrespect. Consider, when you cease to exist, the earth will continue turning, and others will go on living. Would you still cling to your viewpoints? When working with others, if you can make them happy, you're someone who understands life's principles, an extraordinary individual, someone who comprehends reason, a seed of paradise. Try and see if you're someone who brings joy to others. When someone says, "Dog excrement smells lovely," if you immediately counter, "No, it stinks," you're rigid and lack emotional intelligence. However, if you follow up with, "Yes, indeed, dog excrement smells much better than night-blooming jasmine," you possess high emotional intelligence and understanding. When someone says, "The grassland is excellent, but the forest is not," or "Putting on shoes before socks looks better," or "Slimmer women are more sensual," or "Being a son is much better than being a grandfather," how do you respond? 我的个人生老病死观及交代. My personal views on life, aging, sickness, and death, and instructions. Xiefeng, May 30th, 2023. Translation edited by Qinyu. When I safely reached the age of 60, I deeply appreciated the grace bestowed upon me by the ancestor of Buddha, the greatest creator. Life is fraught with constant dangers and uncertainties. Thus, reaching 60 unharmed is considered a great destiny. My heart is filled only with gratitude towards the Creator. Life, aging, illness, and death are natural laws. Everyone has their own perspective on dealing with these. Here are my views. 60 marks the completion of one's life cycle, indicating that by the age of 60, one has eaten what they should, heard what they should, seen what they should, and experienced all they needed to. With life's journey deemed fulfilled, it is time to gracefully accept nature's course and embark on the next journey. If diagnosed with a terminal illness, I will not seek treatment. If a cerebral hemorrhage causes me to lose consciousness, I adamantly refuse and oppose any resuscitation efforts. I've lived a fulfilling life with no regrets. I eagerly anticipate the place I'll go after death. Bringing me back to this world would be cruel. After my death, if anyone is around, I hope they cheerfully cremate me, scatter my ashes as they wish. I arrived empty-handed and will depart the same way. Everything I possess belongs to the second home. Therefore, let everything return to the home. No memorials, monuments, or tombstones are needed. Let me dissipate in the wind while everyone eats, drinks, sings, and dances. Life is a dream. When we wake, it's all gone. I owe nothing to anyone, and no one owes me. This is my dignity as a living being. If afflicted by an incurable illness, I'll utilize the Chanyuan meditation method to depart swiftly. People are not responsible for taking care of me, and I don't expect anyone to tend to me in sickness. That would strip me of my dignity as a living being, devalue my existence, and further incur debts. I don't wish to owe debts and return to this world again. I've established theories and models for a new human way of life. If anyone benefits from it, it's not my achievement. It's the grace of the ancestor Buddha, the greatest creator, and the guidance of gods, Buddhas, celestials, and saints, and the collective wisdom of past sages through tireless efforts. All glory goes to the divine and wise. I merely played a small role, doing what I should. Don't praise me. My reward is sufficient to fill my heart with gratitude. So please, do not regard me as someone deserving of praise or honor. I'm not worthy of any acclaim. People desire longevity, wishing to live to 1 or 10,000. While it's a common desire, I don't aspire for longevity. Since turning 60, I joyfully accept life's end anytime, anywhere. I have no desire to reach 100. I don't want technological or medical advancements to prolong my life. I reject organ transplants and blood transfusions. Let me finish my life journey following nature's rhythm. If I lie sick and unattended, I will not blame anyone. I have done my best for my child, never expecting him to care for me in my old age. Modern young people are already burdened enough. I don't wish to be a burden on his life's journey. If my child can live happily, that is the greatest filial piety and respect for me. I don't expect him or anyone else to take care of me in my old age. So, to anyone who knows me, don't harbor any guilt in your heart because no one owes me anything, and I haven't done anything for anyone. I joyfully accept whatever outcome nature has in store for me. I have one wish. If circumstances allow, I hope those affectionate and capable enough would take care of a Huang in her later years if I depart before her. She's given her all to Life Changyuan, the construction of the second home, possessing no personal wealth. If Life Changyuan persists, I hope everyone living in the second home treats her kindly. I persist in living because I believe I still hold value. The day I become a burden to those living, rather than being of value, is the day I suffer with every passing moment. I'd rather seek an end to this journey sooner than prolong suffering and move on to the next path. Craving life is a natural human inclination, entirely acceptable and not subject to criticism. Yet, for those dedicated to enlightenment and spiritual ascension towards heaven, this desire can obstruct the path to achieving immortality or Buddhahood. Therefore, I choose not to crave life. If I am fortunate enough to embark early on the journey to heaven, it's a divine reward, an immense blessing. These are my personal views on life, aging, illness, and death, along with my instructions. I hope everyone understands and fulfills my wishes. Xinling Qian, 人的思维阶梯, the ladder of human thinking. Xiefeng, the essential difference between people lies in their thinking. We say Jesus is a god because his thinking aligns with that of a god's. We say Sakyamuni is Buddha because his thinking is that of a Buddha. Similarly, Muhammad founded Islam because he had the thinking of a saint. Laozi was able to write the Tao Te Ching because of his sage thinking. The reason why cows and horses are cows and horses is that their thinking has not reached the level of human thinking. If a fox could have human thinking, it could become a fox spirit. If a pine tree had the thinking of a Buddha, it could become a Buddha. An ordinary person, even if they live for 1,000 years, will remain ordinary if they do not change their conventional thinking. But if their thinking changes, they can develop towards the existence of corresponding thinking. That is to say, if a person learns from animals, over time, they will descend into an animal. If a person learns from saints and sages, over time, they will ascend to be a saint or sage. Therefore, the most important thing in life is not to find ways to possess material things, but to find ways to change thinking. Because a pig, despite having 10 pig pens and mountains of feed, is still just a pig. Similarly, a person, despite having 10 villas and billions of dollars in the bank, is still just a person. No matter how majestic a horse is, no matter how many female dogs a dog has, no matter how many mountains a tiger can dominate, even if a fish occupies the entire reservoir, there are few people who want to become a horse, a dog, a tiger, a fish. Why? Because animals are inferior to humans. Similarly, even if a worldly person has a wealth of treasures, a group of wives and concubines, and a prominent position, gods, Buddhas, and celestials would never want to become a worldly person. Flies find dog feces very sweet, but bees disdain it. Phoenixes would rather die than nest in eagle nests. We judge where a person comes from and where they are going based on their state of thinking. If a person's thinking throughout their life is similar to that of an animal, then it can be completely determined that he will be reincarnated as an animal after death. If the state of his thinking at the time of death was the thinking of a saint, then it can be determined that he has gone to a higher life space. Life Genuine always says that the universe is infinitely mysterious, and Xiefeng always says that the future of Life Genuine academicians is bright. This is by no means nonsense or unfounded talk. If the academicians believe in me, I will certainly reveal some of the mysteries of the universe to you in due course. This issue of thinking is one of the mysteries. Please pay high attention to it, academicians. Thinking has a ladder-like nature. I have divided human thinking into 8 rungs on this ladder. I encourage you, as academicians, to ascend these rungs step by step. Material thinking, image thinking, associative thinking, illusory thinking, visualized thinking, taiji thinking, formless thinking, holographic thinking. The highest realm of thinking is holographic thinking. This is a kind of thinking that ordinary people cannot imagine. It can be said that this is the thinking of God. The realm that Sakyamuni reached is formless thinking. The realm that Laozi reached is taiji thinking. The thinking that Muhammad reached is visualized thinking. The thinking that Zhuge Liang and others reached is illusory thinking. The thinking that Einstein and others achieved is associative thinking. The realm that artists like Beethoven reached is image thinking. The thinking of the general public is material thinking. Some prophets, witches, magicians, astrologers, fortune tellers, eccentrics, etc., have illusory thinking. My requirement for academicians is to abandon the first 4 kinds of thinking and directly enter visualized thinking. The term visualized thinking originally came from Tianhe Celestial. I hope he will explain it to us in the future. The thinking I have is holographic thinking. The origin of the universe, the origin of life, the origin of mankind, the origin and characteristics of the greatest creator, the 36 dimensions of space, etc., are the results of my being in a state of holographic thinking. Visualized thinking is mentioned in my self-refinement articles. I hope Tianhe Celestial will not hesitate to teach. I once praised Taiji Celestial for having Taiji thinking, but that is just a spark of spirituality in Taiji Celestial, a drop in the ocean. I hope Taiji Celestial will focus on Taiji thinking, first thoroughly understand the Tao Te Ching, and gradually gain a deeper understanding. If you have any questions, I will guide you. Formless thinking is Buddha's thinking. It can be said that if you reach the realm of formless thinking, you can become a Buddha. This is beyond doubt. I hope that Foshan Celestial will thoroughly understand the Diamond Sutra. Other academicians can cross-practice. If you don't understand, feel free to ask, and we will communicate. I hope that the academicians of Life Genuine will eventually reach the realm of formless thinking. This is the only way to go to the Celestial Islands continent. 真善美人性的核心价值，生命禅院的人性观。Truth, goodness, and beauty, the core value of human nature. The perspective of human nature, Life Genuine. Shuifeng. The big world in our view is just an art form of truth, goodness, and beauty, but the real truth, goodness, and beauty is hidden among the dazzling art form. There is nothing strange for a piece of two-dimensional canvas, but after the painting of Maestro, this flat canvas can display multidimensional space. Hovering clouds during daylight, many peaks scattering in different distance, interspersed by the flowing water under the small bridges, people walking and birds flying. All those infuse people with a sense of truth, goodness, and beauty which characterized with distant quiet and vast infinite. However, let's take a deeper look and ask whether this is the truth, goodness, and beauty. Of course not, it's just an art form, and the real truth, goodness, and beauty is hidden in the back of the picture, in the artist's heart and mind. That is to say, the real beauty is hidden under the representation of art, and everything outside is just the external art manifestation of the hidden truth, goodness, and beauty. Similarly, people's truth, goodness, and beauty are concealed in human nature, and the outward appearance is just the artistic expression of the intrinsic truth, goodness, and beauty. We live in a fantasy art world. We flatter ourselves living truly. In fact, we are just some embellishments on the canvas of artists. As the pigment is washed off, the canvas will restore to a monotonous flat surface. After the change of time-space, the true of us will restore to our original life status quo, and then make a fresh start to another art form. People have 6 perceptions as vision, hearing, olfaction, taste, touch, and telegnosis, and the first 5 perceptions perceive the world by the media of artistic substances. What we perceive are just the external art forms of truth, goodness, and beauty, but not their essential characteristics. Only the telegnosis is able to surpass the artistic material platform to directly perceive the world of truth, goodness, and beauty. 艺术形态的本源就是真. 1. The origin of the art form is truth. Everything perceived by vision, hearing, olfaction, taste, touch are not truth but an art metamorphosis of it, and the real truth is implied at the origin of this artistic representation in the big world. Joe Smith wrote the word human on a blank sheet and then erased it. What did this process mean? This means that the word human on the blank sheet is not true, but a kind of artistic expression originating from the heart of Joe Smith. The real truth is not the word, but Joe Smith, the person. The word human will not appear on the blank sheet without the person, Joe Smith. That means as long as Joe Smith exists, even if the word human is erased, but there will still be a word human. Is a flash in the pan true? Of course not. It is just another human written on a blank sheet and then being erased. It is just an artistic expression of truth hidden at the origin of epiphyllum, and its truth implies in the life structure of this plant. Is human true? Of course not. Human is just an artistic expression form in the life structure. Are bacteria, insects, vegetation, birds, and animals true? Of course not. They are just different artistic expression forms in the life structure. When we see the light of a lightning, the lightning is no longer in existence. When we look up at the stars at night, among those emitting light stars, some of them may have disappeared. When we watch those vivid characters on the video screen, some of the actors may have passed away. When we are complacent of what we own, does it ever occur to you that these things will soon pass out of existence? We live in a virtual reality, and actually what we have seen are all false. Those so-called illusory things, namely the things that the art world tries to express, are true. Visual truth is in line with the scientific and logical deduction, but it is very absurd in the philosophical sense. Standing on a point and going straight ahead, in the end one will unconsciously walk back to the start. Its essential effect equals to zero. Human society seems to be developing and moving to a higher stage of civilization. In fact, it is retracing its steps, and finally will return to the starting point. Winter passes and spring comes. Until the bumper fall passes, it will be back to winter again. For seasons continuously cycle one after another. Fall is coming and the weather is getting cold. A group of wild geese flying south, and this occurs years after years repeatedly. A person, from birth to death and from death to rebirth, one world after another, is always in this way from reincarnation to transmigration. He, walking and walking, seems to be moving forward, but eventually he will return to the starting point. Without the qualitative change, life can only cycle in a strange circle. To avoid moving in circles, We have to focus on truth of life and neglect the art forms of life. To understand truth, we have to be armed with the abnormal thinking. Life genuine begins with the abnormal thinking in order to guide some people that they should not return to the starting point of life, but should transit to a higher art form of life. People seem like have found truth, but the fact is not. At least we can say that 98% of the people just live in the false art world and have never touched the boundary of truth. Suspended on a cliff with a withered vine in hands, a man would instinctively try to climb up and return to the starting point. If I told him, "Let go, let yourself fall," he would think I am non-benevolent. This is the gap between Buddha and a profane man, is also a benchmark to examine the true and false. What is the truth? The origin of art form is the truth. For everything, as long as we strip off the surface and trace the source, we will eventually find out truth. In fact, the life of genuine has revealed truth before the people's visual field of spiritual sense. That truth is the greatest creator, and there is only one truth in the universe. That is the greatest creator, and except him, all the rest are his artistic expression forms. What we mean by seeking truth is to seek the greatest creator. Human beings have sought truth for thousands of years. Except having found the greatest creator, who dares say, "I have found truth," yet? To seek truth departing from the greatest creator is to make vain efforts, is to deceive oneself, and is to set bondage on human beings. Whether philosophers, thinkers, artists, politicians, scientists, religious leaders, or any other person who seek truth departing from the greatest creator, all their efforts will be in vain and false, confusing the humanity. Life genuine expounds the greatest creator with hundreds of thousands of words in order to reveal truth for human. However, when some people seeking truth get up to the God in the Bible is not the real greatest creator, they are confused. It is difficult for them to accept when their inherent thinking pattern is overturned, and so they wanted to return to the starting point. It's just like a man who hanging from a cliff with a withered vine. He desperately wants to seize the withered vine and unwilling to let it go. As a result, he cannot climb up the cliff, nor can he get down on the ground, so he can only swing in the air. I get a range out of you crosswise, but a summit sidewise. Different visages from near or far, from low or high. The Bible, the Quran, and Tao Te Ching, the Buddhist scriptures, science, Marxism, Mao Zedong thought as such can only see either a ridge or a peak, either a distance view or see a close shot. Only organically integrating these fragments, which are seen from different profiles, we can see a probable panorama of truth. If we just grasp a part of it and then attack the rest, this is just like the blind men feel an elephant, which can only leave us far from truth. To seek truth and preserve truth is completely different from playing the concept game or moralization. It involves the life trend of each person. The water without a source is bound to dry up. A tree without root is bound to corrupt. The heart without soul is bound to die. A man without telegnosis is bound to transmigrate in a fixed circle again and again. Truth is the key elements in the core value of human nature. Without truth, the person will be short of human nature. A man cannot have a perfect human nature if he does not have the greatest creator in his mind, because his brutish nature may break out at any time to harm others and nature. Is it possible to have a good future if a man is without human nature? It is just a daydream. Someone will inevitably argue. The ideas of Xiefeng are all rubbish, nonsense, and fart because some senior officials and millionaires never worship the greatest creator but live a more elegant and pleasant life than those who worship the greatest creator. That is right. There are a lot of things in this world that can be easily mixed the false with the genuine, but we have to understand. The smaller the specific gravity, the easier of floating and fluttering. For a plant, the faster of growing, the shorter of lifespan. The smaller of energy, the easier of taking shape. The more of the gain, the greater of the loss. The more enjoyment in this life, the more miserable in afterlife. We often praise that the masterwork of art is very lifelike, but we never say that the masterwork of art is truth, because art is just a metamorphosis of truth. We praise all the scientific achievements are very close to truth, but we never dare to say that scientists have found truth, because science is just one way to seek truth. We praise some people are immortals, saints, but we definitely dare not say that they are the embodiment of truth, because the component part of maintaining truth and safeguarding truth in their humanity is just a little more than that in the common peoples. Is everything we can see real? For an instant, the discrepancy has been more than 100,000 miles. Everything has changed in a blink. Is it true? Truth is invariable, and the variant is not truth. It's better for us to put more component part of truth in our human nature. 维护艺术形态有序和谐的机制就是善. To maintain the orderly and harmonious mechanism of the art form is goodness. The entire material world is the artistic expression form of the recessive truth, goodness, and beauty, while the mechanism that safeguards these art forms to be orderly and harmonious is goodness. Without goodness, everything would be unordered, inordinate, ugly, unharmonious, and unbearable. The greatest creator designs the order of the universe in accordance with the law of supreme goodness. If we observe the world around us carefully, it is not difficult to find the orderliness and concordance of the big world. Voluminous celestial bodies run harmoniously without hindering others. Atmosphere and atmospheric composition of the different gases coexist together and form a harmonious whole. Oceans, rivers, lakes, and streams locate in their own position and coexist harmoniously on the earth. Mountains, valleys, plains, and hills and harmoniously constitute a beautiful landscape painting. The underground microorganisms, the insects and animals on the ground, fish in rivers and lakes and birds flying in the sky all coexist harmoniously in a total vertical crossing living space for life, which is a masterpiece of the great goodness, is the ideal and state of the goodness. For the individual of human members, the desire and behavior of trying to keep the harmonious mechanism of the big world and maintain the orderliness and concordance between oneself with the surrounding life and the ecological environment where life depends on our goodness. Specifically speaking, all the mentality that is full of the reverence to the greatest creator, the reverence for life, and the reverence to nature is goodness. All the conducts that try to safeguard the greatest creator, to maintain order, to love life and protect nature are goodness. To examine human, Chinese ethic people as an example, according to the law of goodness, order, and harmony, we can find some unkindness in our desires and behaviors. Looking back the history, we will find those emperors who did not awe God or heaven were unkind, and there would be the frequent disasters, social unrest, the rampant robbers, the ubiquitous complaints, and the unable surviving masses when those emperors governed kingdoms. On the contrary, if emperors awed God and heaven, there would be good weather, all things prosperous, honesty prevailing throughout society, people living happily, social harmony and peace. This indicates that good pratyaya grows good fruit, and bad pratyaya results in evil consequence. Comparing the leaders of the two countries, China and the United States, we find a phenomenon of a good and evil retribution. U.S. presidents, in the oath of office, always place himself humbly under the greatest creator, and the result is that the U.S. economy develops rapidly with social prosperity, the people affluence, and everyone feeling happy. In view of China, the previous leaders, in their minds, arrogantly placed themselves in the position of being a savior and never believed in the greatest creator, and the result is the suppression of human nature, the suppressed human rights, freedom giving way to power, terror haunting around. In view of the recent facts, the suppression on the personages of democracy and freedom, the rights deprivation on the religion believers, the flagrant violations on the national people's property, the indifference and control on the petitioners highlighted non-goodness of the Chinese leaders and the unkindness of the government conduct. Economic development and material wealth cannot conceal the essence of unkindness. There are always some people who think it is big goodness to solve the subsistence problem. In fact, the problem of food belongs to the property of animals, and there are the elements of free speaking and free pouring in the property human. If people have lost the right of freely expression their ideals, beliefs, thoughts, lost the right to move freely, and then the whole implication of goodness is just regarded as the food problem. Then, what is the difference between human beings with the animal in a cage? I raised 2 dogs, and I fed them enough meat, food, and pure clean water pumped from the well every day. I also allowed them to run and chase unscrupulous on the evergreen lawn surrounded by trees. Could it be said that my 2 big dogs have shared human rights? No, it is just the dog rights at most. Misgovernment makes the people rebel, because the people have to rebel, but the revolt is definitely not goodness. All the actions such as revolt, rebellion, robbery, deprivation, massacre, fighting to overthrow the dictatorship and eradication as such have destroyed the order, and all these actions are not goodness. All the mentality and actions such as launch a vengeful counterattack, scores settlement, awaiting the revenge, malicious attack, wantonly slandering, spreading rumors, stirring up trouble, encouraging hatred, provoking dissension, splitting nation, personal attacks, and fame slandering are not goodness. All the large-scale movements combining culture with politics are not goodness. All those movements such as the May 4th movement, the June 4th, and the Great Cultural Revolution destroyed goodness of human nature and natural mind, in which countless good people were treated unjustly, through which people became more and more cunning, selfish. Actions of destructing the natural environment, regardless of what high-sounding name that bannered, are not goodness because their essence is a prodigal son's behavior, which aims at destructing the homeland and foundation of descendants. All the mentality and actions such as jealousy, hatred, manufacturing fake to reap huge profits, counterfeiting brand name, stealing others' achievements, oppression, exploitation, fraud, extortion, blackmail, theft, murder, arson, abuse, loan sharking, adding insult to injury are not goodness. All the plots invented or created on the battlefield, officialdom, market, casinos, situation related with love aim at entrapping, blowing, weakening, and destroying the others are not goodness. Goodness is a scale to measure of a person's human nature. To find out if a person is goodness or not depends on whether he can keep harmonious relationship with the world around him. Once the disharmony appears, at least one part, and even two or more parties are non-goodness. Goodness can be classified to greater goodness and common goodness. The greater goodness is the property of the greatest creator, gods, and Buddha, and the common goodness is the property of saints, sages, and wise men. The big benevolence seems heartless. The big goodness seems evil. Keeping Satan, predators, and designedly destroying part of the human are conducts of the high goodness, which is difficult to be understood according to the common sense. To maintain the orderliness and harmony of human and nature is just to conduct the low goodness. Human can only preserve the low goodness and should not conspire the high one. Otherwise, human will certainly take the road of demons. If politicians are unkind, it will inevitably lead to the popular discontent. If thinkers are unkind, this is bound to misguide human. If scientists are unkind, they are bound to become the accomplices fighting against human. If religionists are unkind, they are bound to terrify human with terror. If writers are unkind, the noveletish works are bound to pollute the human soul. If artists are unkind, this is bound to make the antics distort humanity. Goodness is also a state. The nice ideal comes from the wish of goodness. I wish everyone has goodness, and everyone has a nice ideal. 三艺术形态的和谐比例搭配和对称就是美。3. The harmony, proportion, collocation, and symmetry of art forms are beauty. The art form of nature, including human, is designed by the greatest creator in light of the law of beauty. The law of beauty is the harmony, proportion, collocation, and symmetry in everything from the configuration of the celestial bodies to the outward appearances of plants, from the crystal structure to the different shapes of animals, from thick and thin of color to the light and shade of light embodies the harmony, proportion, collocation, and symmetry, gives an infinite beauty for visual sense. What the sense of beauty brings people are comfort, safety, happiness, joy, delight, tranquility, and peace. But the forms being unsuitable to the sense of beauty bring people with nausea, anabole, dizziness, anxiety, anxiousness, depressing, worry, and terror. The towering cliffs, tilted building, disabled body, grotesque objects, far-fetched environmental layout, drawings and sculptures composed by unmatched proportion, strange sounds and music without any melody, the dyed-in and young head of young people and clothing with asymmetric patterns on left and right sides, etc. make people fretful and uncomfortable. Graceful art form and environment endows life with longevity, but the ungraceful art form and environment makes life short and even leads to suicide. In view of human society, a charitable king, the highly efficient government agencies with few but good staff, the management mechanism with a pyramid model will impress a sense of beauty on people. However, a management mechanism with tripartite balance of forces, overstaffed organization, inefficient work, no one in charge, and interference of many other departments can only give people a sense of chaos, disorder, blindness, depression, and sense of foreboding. In view of families, the cell of society, showing respect for the aged and love for the young, the harmonious couples, elders and juniors each in their places, female coordination, friendly neighborhood, and self-effacing for siblings will bring people with the beautiful sense of tranquility and peace. However, the families characterizing with the insatiable senior, irreverent junior, weak male, strong female, hostile neighborhood, suspicious and vengeful brothers and sisters bring people with a sense of foul atmosphere, incomprehension, reversion of yin and yang, and disarrangement. In view of the human individual, a man with proud temper, rash character, bad fortune, and poor wisdom prefers seeking quick success and instant benefits, but he always conspires a great cause. A man speaks rudely, stirs up enmity, and is not good at his own job, but he always makes random comments on others. A man ignores his proper occupation, but he always wants to incite and abets others so as to start a campaign. A man always gives up halfway, sticks to his guns, worships nothing, changes by day after day, and seldom reflects on himself. But he always blames that others' life proportion is inharmonious, asymmetric, and short of beauty. The advanced state of people's ideological level is the state of supreme goodness and supreme beauty. What they called saints refer to the people whose ideological level have reached the ultimate state of goodness and beauty. We can always tell the dignity and humbleness of a man's soul depending on the proportion of the goodness and beauty that his whole human nature occupied. The appreciation and pursuit of beauty is the eternal and maximum driving force to promote human to move on towards the civilization. In order to seek the sense of beauty, some scientists, artists, philosophers, thinkers, writers, and religionists begin their active learning, exploring, and progressing. It is absolutely not simply to gain the powers and material benefits that they are engaged in their careers. The beauty of all is added by the greatest creator. To safeguard the beauty is the bounden duty for the gods and the Buddha, the ideal and pursuit for the saint, the sage and the wise men, wishes for the ordinary people. Beauty is one of the core values of human nature. Only when beauty is in human nature can the lives bloom brilliant flowers and bear rich fruit. If a person abandons the beauty, his life would wither, and his life journey would be calamitous. Wish everyone has beautiful human nature. 4. 顺便谈谈人. 4. Endurance. A blade on heart forms the Chinese character of forbearance, which is a way of humiliatingly seeking the existence in a desperation state. The greatest creator does not require us to live disgracefully. If we regard forbearance as an excellent quality of human nature, we would have completely departed from the principle that of well-being, which is to say we have given up the freedom and human rights and we just serve as the role of cattle, horses, pigs, and dogs. Simply asking people to endure is the smoke ball released by the autocratic power and robbers in order to maintain their own vested interests, and is the poison alluring people to commit suicide. If we break down the forbearance into suffering, tolerance, and enduring humiliation in order to carry out an important task, which appear in the humility and reconciliation, in the pursuit of truth and in the devotion of cause, that is the symbol of goodness and beauty. But if we submit to humiliation, bear our shame and ignore it pitilessly in order to survive, we will indeed become a symbol of cattle, pigs, and dogs. I often queue up at Oversea. If someone wants to cut in line, others would scold and stop him immediately. In this way, everyone stands in line with a good order. But in China, if someone, especially a big guy with a frightening face, cuts in the line, few people would stand out to stop him. Why does this happen? For people have learnt to forbear and learnt to survive disgracefully. In order to survive disgracefully, and many Chinese people have played the forbearance to its extreme. They are indifferent to hooligans molesting women on the street, the evil hand of the thief reaching into the pockets of others, those evil factory owner discharging toxic water into the river, watching the selfish, lazy person to brazenly dump the rubbish in public places, seeing the people's asset entering the private pockets in disguised form, seeing a bully under the protection of a powerful person insulting the weak, seeing the merchants who are obsessed with money manufacturing the toxic food, seeing the marketing fake products, seeing people do not feel ashamed about all those things. They endure the sufferings and have self-improved and own some profound forbearing intention. So human nature has forfeited, and everyone has become the dignified monks who seem to be otherworldly. Comrades, my fellow citizens and church members, please forbear it, to forbear it forever, to forbear it until the ground and the sky are reversed, to forbear it until the right and wrong are confounded, to forbear it until the ghosts and monsters are rampant, to forbear it until the goblins in the pantry, to forbear it until the sun and the moon are dimmed, to forbear it until the seas run dry and the rocks crumble, to forbear it until one is put in a coffin and sent to crematorium, until all our free and nice human life being buried by ourselves. The famous dictum of the universe is truth, goodness, and beauty, in which I do not find the forbearance. Tao is running strictly according to the law of life. Going against the Tao, one is certain to be punished severely, whereas, following the Tao, one is bound to be rewarded. The greatest creator will definitely not prefer forbearance. Neither will the gods nor the Buddha. Forbearance is the violation and desecration of life, is the rebellion and destruction of human nature. Shall we continue to forbear? 5. Conclusion. Truth, goodness, and beauty are the origin of the art forms in the world, the attributes of the greatest creator and the core values of human nature. Truth is the origin of the art form. Goodness is an orderly and harmonious mechanism to safeguard the art form. Beauty is the harmony, proportion, collocation, and symmetry of the art form. The combination of the universe is the combination of truth, goodness, and beauty without which there will be no the universe. Human is a kind of art form as well as a kind of art metamorphosis of truth, goodness, and beauty. Truth, goodness, and beauty have the features of immutability, but all the rest are just works of art which will change along with the changes of time and space. The lofty ideal is a kind of ideological level in seeking and safeguarding truth, goodness, and beauty. This ideological level can make a man's life a continuing transit to the eternal truth, goodness, and beauty, and will eventually win the eternity of life. The essential difference of the ignorant person, the laity, the mortal, the sage, and the saint lies in the different remaining proportion of the ingredient in its own human nature. The fewer the ingredients, the more likely to locate in the state of animal world. The more the ingredients, the more likely to move towards the sage, the celestial, to become the celestial being, the God, and the Buddha. This is not the far-fetched false talk, as long as there is the relatively perfect quality of truth, goodness, and beauty in our human nature. Isn't it difficult to become a celestial being? The 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and Elysium world are the perfect world of truth, goodness, and beauty. If we can reach the perfect standard of truth, goodness, and beauty, it is not difficult for us to enter the high-level life space. Little strokes fell great oaks. Constant effort brings success. The pursuers of truth, goodness, and beauty need continuous gnosis and exploration, continuous insight into a profound theory. Things will be easily settled when conditions are ripe. Whether we can reach the perfect world of truth, goodness, and beauty completely depends on the secret of nature. 心灵纯美的标志. The standards of a pure and beautiful soul. Xiefeng. September 28, 2009. Perhaps you have no idea what the kingdom of heaven is like because you have never lived there. Or maybe you did live there once, but you have completely forgotten the life there, after a few cycles of transmigration. This does not matter. We still have ways to peek at the things there. First of all, we must realize that it is a joyful and free place in which there are no worries about food, clothing, living, transportation, birth, death, illness, or old age, and no interpersonal arguing or fighting in which everyone gets along with each other, and no one bullies, oppresses, hurts, or bothers anyone else. Well, that is such a beautiful place, but how can we achieve it here? By having pure and beautiful minds. When everyone's mind is that way, the place they live in will be heaven. When we look back and think of the many people whom we have met, some of them brought us delight, joy, happiness, and freedom, which indicated that their souls were pure and fair, whereas others brought us distress, trouble, anxiety, and pain, which meant that theirs were ugly. The fact is as clear as a sheet of white paper. Only those who have pure and beautiful minds can go to the kingdom of heaven, and only when we stay together with people who have pure and beautiful minds can we enjoy the blessings of the kingdom of heaven. So, how do we recognize whether a person's mind is pure and beautiful? Please refer to the following standards of a pure and beautiful soul: appreciative, praising, reverent, trustworthy, honest, kind, diligent, unsophisticated, smart and lively, clean and neat, pure, modest, open-minded, forgiving, magnanimous, selfless, positive and optimistic, passionate, humorous, gentle and amiable. Appreciation is the source of happiness and a foundation to get along harmoniously with the greatest creator, nature, and each other. Praise is the symbol of a wealthy mind for a person. Praising the greatest creator, praising nature, and praising others are the symbols of a pure and beautiful soul. Reverence means being pious and respectful. It is the symbol of being clear-minded and self-understanding. Trustworthiness is the symbol of being reliable. One who cannot be trusted is worthless. Honesty is an excellent quality which gives people a sense of dependability, stability, reliability, and comfort. Kindness is the expression of respecting life as well as a guarantee to harmonize with all life. Diligence is a virtue and is the basic guarantor of survival, as well as the means of winning respect from others. Unsophistication is the state of non-contamination, the revelation of nature, and the Buddha state. Smartness and liveliness show the vibrant life phenomena and are the oneness of nature and man, the love for nature, the love for life, and the love for existence. They are the symbols of full vitality. Cleanliness and neatness portray being civilized and well-bred. Purity reveals the state of being non-hypocritical, non-artificial, non-superficial, truth-seeking, and straight-talking. Modesty and gentility reflect serenity, profound wisdom, grace, calmness, and generosity. Open-mindedness is the intangible state of reaching the spiritual Pure Land, as well as the symbol of having a bright and beautiful future. Forgivingness is the symbol of being magnanimous, calm, and mentally healthy. Magnanimity represents the quality of being frank, forthright, radiant, and elegant. Selflessness is a state which represents asking for nothing, yet having nothing but owning everything at the same time. Positivity and optimism are the most important symbols of being healthy in spirit and mind. Passion is the symbol of being full of vigor, the process of creating beauty in life, and the artistry of life. Humor and wit are the expressions of being tactful, the life portraits of being skillful, at ease, natural, unrestrained, and elegant. Gentility and amiability are the catalysts of perfect lives, the oxens of excellent quality, the yeast of subliming lives, the detergent of blundering and weariness, the nourishing womb of joy and happiness, and the midwife of a happy life. When people have the above qualities, then they have the qualifications to proceed to the kingdom of heaven, and their futures are bound to be in heaven. When we are staying with such people, delight, joy, freedom, and happiness will flow continuously. Only intelligent people know the value and significance of having the above-mentioned qualities. Foolish people will not even bother to try. 人生从这两个目的展开. Life unfolds from these two purposes. Xiefeng, edited by Kayer. Life unfolds from two purposes. The first purpose is to make life happy, joyous, free, and blessed. The second is to allow life to extend and develop into a higher space. In order to make life happy, joyous, free, and blessed, we must first differentiate between those factors which do not get in life's way of obtaining those objectives and those that do. Which factors do not keep us from being happy? Thriving grass, beautiful flowers, gurgling streams, surging rivers, free-flying birds, the ever-changing clouds, the sun and the moon, the stars above and the stones below, the earth, and so on. The vast majority of phenomena of nature do not keep us from being happy. Pure friendship, sweet love, and selfless family affection do not keep us from being happy. Hard work, plain living with collective games, sound sleep, and so on do not keep us from being happy. Which ones do keep us from being happy? Chaotic disorder, jealousy, greed, quarreling and fighting, jostling against each other, paranoia and suspicions, imposing upon others, suppression and revenge, making trouble out of nothing, being capricious, unfaithfulness, deliberately showing off and other falsehoods, and wicked and ugly things keep us from being happy. Which factors do not keep us from being joyous? Learning, laboring, working, and resting do not keep us from joy. Communicating, researching, exploring, and adventures do not keep us from having joy either. Appreciation, praise, encouragement, and mutual aid do not keep us from having joy, nor do eating, drinking, exercising, or going out. Which ones do keep us from being joyous? Repression and humiliation of the human nature, dissatisfaction with the status quo, the endless pursuit of desires, the limiting and denial of our fundamental freedoms, the denunciation of human dignity, the lack of privacy, damage to our minds and bodies, and other factors keep us apart from experiencing our joy. And which factors do not keep us from being free? Nature does not restrict our freedom, nor does the greatest creator constrain it either. Difficulties and setbacks do not shackle us, and suffering and hardships do not interfere with our freedom either. Which ones do keep us from being free? It is the families, religions, political parties, and states that bind our freedoms. It is the moral preachment, all the repressions of the mind, the limitations of the five elements of space and time, the requirements to have ignorant opinions, our debts and favors, all the possessions, the frame and edge of the box section of the circle, and so on that keep us from being free. Which factors do not hinder us from being blessed? Pleasurable situations and sincere content in life make us feel blessed. Yearning for beautiful things in the celestial world make us feel blessed. Being able to freely enjoy tranquility without interference makes us feel blessed. Being able to play, chat, flirt, and drink refreshing water make us feel blessed. Appreciating the beauty of things and feeling grateful make us feel blessed. Which ones do interfere with our experiencing blessing? It is the discontented psychology, the jealousy and resentful emotions, the dissatisfied thinking of reality out of time, the persistence of people, events, objects, ideas, the attitude of giving up the present to blindly pursue results, the anxiety caused by excessive possession, the contradiction between the ideal and the reality, and other factors that hinder our blessing. The pursuits of happiness, joy, freedom, and blessing are perfectly justified rights, and leading such a life is the wish of the greatest creator and is always a paramount goal of life. Planning life and understanding life around this goal is in accordance with the way of the greatest creator. Therefore, under the principles of reverence to the greatest creator, reverence to nature, and reverence to life, any outlook on life, morality, values, means, and ways that can make our lives happy, joyous, free, and blessed are both proper and acceptable, but any outlook that hinders them are wrong and are unacceptable. In this way, our lives are clear, and we will always distinguish truth from falseness in everything, and we will enjoy them without regrets. The other purpose of life is to extend life to a higher level of space. Life is short, like a colt crossing the river. Centuries pass in the blink of an eye. If we are not sustained with a more ambitious ideal, if we do not aspire and pursue the celestial world, then we will be likely to lead befuddled lives, to commit sins, to become disillusioned and frustrated with the mortal world, will be prone to wander helplessly and grow dread, and end up going from bad to worse and unable to rise up after we fall. Therefore, when we go on self-refinement and self-cultivation and explore the mysteries of time, space, and life, we should also be moving toward heaven. In guiding us to trek and climb to the highest realm of life and life, Life at Genuine is essentially discussing centering around these two purposes. If our lives center on these two objectives, then we will feel clear-minded and enlightened, and the cloud will be lifted. Man is not born of original sin. Xiefeng, February 10, 2008. Translated by Transin and edited by Care. Is nature good or evil? This controversial issue, which has been debated for thousands of years, finally gets answered correctly from Life at Genuine. Good and evil are not the properties of nature, but are determined by material logic. In other words, when the material content is achieved through the content of consciousness, there will be the distinction between good and evil. Shinkuan Buddha of Life at Genuine said this. There is no right or wrong or good or evil on the level of consciousness. Consciousness only reflects the results achieved by material logic. Right or wrong and good or evil is determined by material logic. Meeting the material logic that creates the totality is right and good. Destroying the material logic that creates totality is wrong and evil. Therefore, from the point of view of pure consciousness, on that level, there is no right or wrong. However, if consciousness appears and uses the content of consciousness to achieve material content, then the consciousness can be right or wrong and good or evil, which is determined by the material logic that achieves the content. For example, the information stored in a computer is binary, whether good or bad. Does not have a right or wrong, or good or evil nature. The right or wrong and good or evil is the result of the application of the information on a physical level. Likewise, scientific principles can improve the lives of people, but can also manufacture weapons to destruct human life. Similarly, on the consciousness level of the universe, that is, alaya consciousness, there is neither right and wrong nor good and evil. The consciousness of the universe only truthfully records the data of material cycle, data of life's consciousness, and activities in the universe. The right or wrong and good or evil of the universe is determined by individual consciousness of life. And the individual consciousness that decides the good or evil is determined by the application of the consciousness of life on material logic. And the right or wrong and good or evil that reflects the application of material logic is determined by the totality of the material cycle. As a result, both arguments of nature is evil and nature is good are wrong. Well, what does Life Achanuan say on the issue of whether we are born into sin or not? We are not born as such. Sin is the result of the incomplete and imperfect social operating mechanisms of human society and is not innate. The root causes of the suffering of human societies for thousands of years lies not with sin, but with the imperfect operating mechanism of human society. If the operating mechanism is complete and perfect, people will not sin, but if the operating mechanism is not good, people may sin. Let's examine whether our conclusion is correct or not. Chinkoan Buddha has given us the following example. 6 people live in an apartment with only one toilet, so the use of the toilet becomes a problem which leads to conflicts with unpleasant results. Sin thus comes along. If the conflicts due to the unreasonable limitation of the toilet are resolved, say, by building a second toilet, then they will be lessened, and if we built a third toilet, the conflicts would be minimized even more and the so-called sins would not arise. Therefore, the sin caused by toilet use was not innate, but was from the restrictive design structure of the apartment. If we compare sin to flies, we have to ask where flies come from. If we go to a place with a clean and beautiful environment, we see hardly any of them, but if we go to a relatively dirty and messy environment, we will see many flies. This is true. Actions speak louder than words. The fact has proven that flies do not come from nowhere, but from unclean environments. In Chinese history, there were many instances of peasant uprisings, including the revolution of Chinese workers and peasants under the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party. What led to that? Did the peasants and workers naturally want to revolt and rebel? Absolutely not. Uprisings and revolutions are caused by bad social operating mechanisms. If the social operating mechanisms are good, especially if the distribution of the means of production is reasonable, there will not be any rebellions or revolutions. The corruption in the Singapore government is less than in the Chinese government. Could it be that Chinese officials have innately corrupt hearts? No. There is something wrong with the government's operating mechanism. There is anger and there are conflicts between wives and husbands, and sometimes there are the phenomena of affairs outside of marriage, or bigamy, and so on. Could it be that people are born to be angry and to have conflicts with each other? No. They are the results of the survival mechanism, marriage mechanism, and family mechanism. If there were no marriage, then there would be no family operating mechanism, and these phenomena could have been avoided. The world's population is now reaching 6.8 billion, right? This enormous population is drastically depleting our natural resources. The pollution of air, water, and all the natural resources on Earth is a testament to our overpopulation. Fierce competition and a series of overt and covert conflicts result, upsetting people, both day and night. What are the reasons? The reasons are because there is something wrong with the social operating systems. It is not that people are sinned, not at all. In short, man is not born sinned. There is the saying of forcing young girls of good families to prostitute themselves and forcing boys to join the rebels. Who forces? It is the social operating mechanism that forces. As I have said before, the core crisis of mankind is the crisis of the soul. Well then, I am now saying that man is not born from sin. The sin is caused by bad social operating mechanisms. Are they contradictory? Are the Chanyuan values themselves creating paradoxes? No and no. Good social operating mechanisms need to be built by people with beautiful souls. Without beautiful souls, good social operating mechanisms can never be built. So the construction of the soul is the first requirement, but beautiful souls are not enough. We must construct a good social operating mechanism with beautiful souls. Otherwise, the beautiful souls will not be sustained for very long. This is more like the love between men and women. At first, everything goes fine, but if they do not build operating mechanisms to reinforce their original intentions, conflicts will soon develop which will either lead to their breaking up or to their struggling in pain for a lifetime. All religions, including Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, and others, have problems on establishing good social operating mechanisms. All the various cultivation groups, including the Indian ones, the Chinese ones, recent spiritual practice groups in the West, and others have ignored the establishment and construction of good social operating mechanisms. All political parties, especially the Communist Party organizations under the guidance of Marxism, are working hard to build better social operating mechanisms, but they neglect the greatest creator and the construction of the human soul. If political party organizations neglect the greatest creator and the human soul, they cannot build good social operating mechanisms, despite how hard they might try. If religious organizations ignore the building of good social operating mechanisms, then regardless of what they claim, whether it is the reappearance of Jesus, the reincarnation of Maitreya, deity celestial beings descending to earth, the reappearance of Dharmakakra, or threats such as impending catastrophes or the apocalypse, are useless and unhelpful to the world. If cults conjure up their spirits and deities, describe fortunes and disasters, and escapes from reality, lead befuddled lives as if drunk or in a dream, study sorcery and witchcraft, and play with spells, their members could never become celestial beings or Buddha or get away from the 6 worlds of reincarnation. For them to even re-emerge human, an afterlife would be very difficult. If you sinned in your previous life, then you have been punished. If your ancestors sinned, they had to bear it. But that has nothing to do with you. A king's children may not be kings or queens. A thief's children need not necessarily be thieves. Man is not born into sin. Whether we are sinned or not depends on whether we revere nature, revere life, revere the greatest creator, and whether we take on the way of the greatest creator. 怎样才算过了河? 1. What counts as having crossed the river? 1. Dayform Buddha. December 3, 2006. Translated by Treasure and edited by Care. Why is it so hard to find soulmates in our lives? A soulmate is another self that resonates with our souls. Those with souls that do not completely resonate with ours cannot be our soulmates. Life becomes fulfilled when one finds their soulmate, but although this is the dream and expectation of most people, it is very rare that they actually find them. Why can we not find ours? Why is it so hard? There are thousands of reasons, but the core one is that we ourselves are not frank and honest with each other. Being with friends brings us joy. Being with soulmates brings us sedateness. Such beautiful feelings are really beyond description. Where is heaven? Heaven is the place where soulmates unite with each other. Soulmates do not possess each other, but enrich each other. Do not occupy each other, but allow full freedom for each other. Do not pillage each other, but give to each other. If both parties are willing to devote their lives to each other, then they are soulmates. The human world is only a mortal world because we cannot find our soulmates here. The place where there are no soulmates is the mortal world. The reason why the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium world are paradises is because we can find group of soulmates there. Only by bearing our souls, by bearing ourselves completely, and by dedicating ourselves, can we find our soulmates. Darkness confuses people and makes them afraid. see nothing and understanding nothing. How can people be joyous and comfortable in darkness? People wrap themselves up, do not let outsiders see their inner worlds, watch and monitor others like thieves, and make others clear but keep themselves unclear. So how can they find a soulmate? Climbing to the sky is hard, but understanding oneself is even harder. Pursuing Tao is extremely hard, but facing one's true self is much harder. Being hypocritical is ugly and one of the symptoms of an imperfect life structure. Selfness is the chief criminal that causes our own and others' pain, and the greatest obstacle to the way of self-improvement. The greatest difference of self-improvement and self-cultivation between Life Genuine and other sects is that our emphasis is on the perfection of non-material life structures. As long as our structures are perfect, then we will acquire Tao and become celestials. From differences of perfection, we achieve differences of fruition. Other sects emphasize the training of skills, such as dredging meridians, alchemy, chanting mantras, reciting sutras, meditating, practicing pranayama, collecting qi, twin cultivation, and so on. The difference between Life Genuine and other sects such as Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, and Islam is that Life Genuine follows two paths at the same time. One is the path of life, the other is the path of life. Not only do we enjoy our lives, but we also pursue a beautiful afterlife. Not only do we devote ourselves to humanity and to creating the Life Genuine era, but we also extend our lives into the higher level spaces of life. Other sects generally take no account of this life, but emphasize pursuing their future, afterlife. We are unique in that we do both. Obviously, without processes, there are no results. Without good processes, there are no good results. Those who do not feel joyous and happy as humans are absolutely unable to reach heaven. How could we enjoy heaven if we always wear sad faces? If there is no joy and happiness in our life structures, then how could we enjoy pleasure and happiness in heaven? If we cannot conduct ourselves well as humans, then how can we understand how to become celestial beings or attain Buddhahood? If we cannot learn courses of primary and middle school very well, then how can we study university courses well? The self-improvement and self-cultivation of Life Genuine is unique. Our aim is to let everyone always lead joyous and happy lives, to really laugh, to become children with wisdom, to forget what fear, worry, and death are, to be each other's soulmates, adore each other, dedicate ourselves to each other, and love each other until death. Finally, we will abandon and forget about ourselves completely, only devote ourselves, and become so foolish that we will not even care about what is in our own best interest. When we become this way, then we will have achieved our goal. Newcomers to Life Genuine might have the illusion that Chanyuan Celestials are silly children who lack profound wisdom and enjoy fun all day without self-cultivation, but the opposite is actually true. All Chanyuan Celestials have clear minds and brilliant wisdom. Our self-cultivation directs our core, and we attain magical powers naturally. Supreme self-cultivation is contained within human nature and nature. Gradually, our wisdom will exceed many masters, and our non-material structures will approach those of super-celestial beings. This can be stated as, the pinnacle of good writing is nothing special, it is only being just right. The pinnacle of good character is nothing unusual, it is only being one's natural self. We need to climb mountains and cross rivers on our journey. The highest mountain is the self. We need to climb over the self. If we still maintain our present selves, then we cannot become celestial beings. Where are these rivers that need to be crossed? How many are there? And what counts as having crossed one? I will explain those things in the backyard of Life Genuine. 怎样才算过了河? How can you count as having crossed the rive? 2. Dayform Buddha. December 3, 2006. There is no lack of beauty in nature. I firmly believe that there is no lack of beautiful souls among mankind. It is easy to discover the beauty of nature, but not so easy to discover the beauty of soul, because the beauty of nature is open and visible, while the beauty of man's soul is hidden. This is something sad for mankind. To hide the beautiful soul from people's view is not only discrediting the creation of nature, but also does no good to mankind. There is beauty where there is love, be it emotional love or sexual love. However, have we exhibited our love? In the 1,000-year world of the heavenly kingdom, beauty exists everywhere, because in the 1,000-year world love is manifested freely, and no one would conceal their love. In the 10,000-year world, celestial beings are all naked, and there is nothing to hide. In the celestial island continent of the Elysium world, super-celestial beings are all united as a whole. If we cannot love freely in the human world, won't we distort the beautiful soul? What are the maladies of the love in human world? Our love is too selfish. Once we fall in love with someone, we want to possess our lover and would not allow anyone else to be involved in any way. Fresh flowers are beautiful and everyone can enjoy them, but the beauty in human world is only private property. Once you have fallen in love and got married, you should no longer love anyone else, and vice versa. You love like a coward. You love someone secretly, but do not make it known to the person that you love. All wear a mask and love like a thief. Your words contradict what you think, and your words are inconsistent with your actions. Anyone who displays his love will be sniffed at by hypocrites, although they themselves also want to love and be loved. Everyone is on guard against each other. Love is beautiful, but we love secretly and with fear because we are afraid of being embarrassed and having our reputation tarnished. Countless obstacles have been placed for love, so that we do not have the courage to love although we have the desire. Once we have devoted or got the love, we have to endure the torture of spirit. The above 8 points constitute the great river that blocks our way to become celestial beings and enter the heavenly kingdom. If we cannot cross this river, we will not be able to enjoy the life in the heavenly kingdom. This is self-evident. Everyone can imagine what he will do if he is in charge of the heavenly kingdom. If everyone in the heavenly kingdom behaves as if they were in the human world, can the system of the heavenly kingdom be maintained? How can people go to the heavenly kingdom if they know nothing about it and conduct self-cultivation and self-refinement blindly without any direction or goal? Life Genuine is going to build a fairyland and wants everyone to conduct self-cultivation and self-refinement in imitation of the 1,000-year world. However, let's imagine, if we cannot cross the river, what shall become of us even if we come to live together? We may end up as another version of the human world, or a snobbish group. Currently, the backyard of Life Genuine is a venue for self-cultivation and self-refinement. Here we only cultivate the consciousness. Are we capable of love even in this venue for cultivation of consciousness? What are we cultivating if we dare not even express our love? Why cannot we exhibit the beauty of our soul as much as we like? Why do we find it difficult to accept other people's display of their beauties? We all like honesty, then why do we find it difficult to accept other people's honest display of their beauties? This is not our fault. The problem is that we have been bonded by the mistaken consciousness of mankind formed thousands of years ago. Habit is the second nature. This is like my experience of driving in Zimbabwe, where the cars run on the left side of the road. When I am back in China, I feel it extremely awkward and unnatural to drive on the right side. The problem does not lie with the left side habit or the right side driving, but with our failure to transform our consciousness. The angel of sexual love has come to help us to transform our consciousness. For fear that we may not be able to change our mindset and that we might be scared away, she is lecturing to us gently and lightly. Still, we are frightened out of our wits, as can be seen from the posts. People engaged in cultivation mostly like dabbling in the unfathomable magical arts and learning, but turn a blind eye to the trifle easily visible to our eyes. It seems to them that only discussion and exploration of the abstruse can count as self-cultivation and self-refinement, and that talk about trifles of life is not self-cultivation and self-refinement. This is a misunderstanding and mistake in self-cultivation and self-refinement. How well one has achieved in self-cultivation and self-refinement should not be judged according to what he says, but according to what he has done. One has to put into practice what he has learned. If he cannot put what he has learned to actual use, he might as well not have learned it. We can judge by ourselves from the manifestations whether we have a perfect non-material structure of life. The perfect structure will be reflected in the perfect outer appearance. If the appearance is ugly, the structure must be flawed. The above 8 points form a turbulent river, then how can you judge whether you have crossed the river? Be open and straightforward in love. Allow others to love what one loves. Do not feel jealousy, do not forcefully occupy, and do not possess. 2. What you think should be consistent with what you do. What you say should not contradict what you do. Do not do things under the counter. and do away with hypocrisy and affectation. 3. Be generous, magnanimous, refrain from stealing, robbing, and hurting others. 4. Be brave to fully exhibit one's beauty of heart, and even to fully manifest one's figure. 5. Be brave to love, and talk about one's feeling of emotional love and sexual love. 6. Be brave to love, but never force anything upon anyone. Never be impudent, never be obsequious, and never hurt others. 7. Love is an art. We should not be vulgar. We should exhibit our beauty in words and actions. We should not act like animals. 8. Imagine yourself to be the radiant and splendid light, the fragrant orchids, and the fairies and fairies in the heavenly kingdom. If you can meet the above 8 conditions, then you can be counted as having crossed the river. You can imagine, if someone has met the above 8 conditions, won't it be a pleasant matter to get along with him or her? If many people have achieved these conditions, won't we all feel happy and joyful, as if we were already in the heavenly kingdom? The above are my opinions. You can fully share with us your own feelings and opinions so that we can continue our discussions. 信任是蜂蜜，不信任是一把刀. Trust is honey and mistrust is a dagger. Shuefeng, September 6, 2007. Trust is a virtue. Trust creates the heavenly kingdom. Trust is a tremendous invisible power. Trust is the moral character of a simplistic and kind person. And trust is the natural instincts of children. Jesus Christ told us that unless you become children again, you will not be able to enter the kingdom of the greatest Creator, because the heavenly kingdom belongs to children. If we want to enter the back garden of the greatest Creator, then we must first cultivate our moral character of trust. Let's have a look at the power of trust. There is a story in the Chinese textbook of primary school, The Father and Son in the Earthquake, which runs like this. In 1989, a great earthquake struck Los Angeles in the United States, which rendered harm and injury to 300,000 people within less than 4 minutes. Amidst the chaos and ruins, a young father rushed to the school where his 7-year-old son was studying after getting his injured wife settled down. In front of him, the classroom building, which had been full of laughter of children, was now reduced to ruins. He was dumbfounded and all was blank in his head. He shouted, "Amanda, my son." He knelt on the ground and burst out crying. Then he suddenly recalled the word he often told his son, "I will always be with you, no matter what happens." He got to his feet with great determination and headed directly to the ruins. He knew that his son's classroom was at the left back corner on the first floor. He ran to that place and began work. When he was cleaning up and dredging the area, a constant stream of parents of the children rushed to the site. Seeing the rubbish, they burst into tears and cried, "My son, my daughter." After this, they left the school in despair. Some people came forward and took hold of this young father's hand, saying, "It is too late. They are already dead." Staring at these kind-hearted people, he asked, "Would you help me?" No one gave him an affirmative answer, so he lowered his head and continued digging. The captain of the fire brigade blocked him, saying, "It's too dangerous. Fire and explosion may occur any time. Please leave this place." The father asked, "Are you coming to help me?" The policeman walked over and said, "We know that you are very sad and cannot control yourself, but if you continue like this, it will be harmful to yourself and will also expose others to danger. Please go back home immediately." He asked the policeman instead, "Are you coming to help me?" People all shook their heads and left in sighs, thinking that this father had lost his mind over the loss of his child. This father only had one belief in his mind: "My son is waiting for me." He continued digging for 8 hours, 12 hours, 24s, and 36 hours. No one stopped him. His face was covered with dust, and his eyes were bloodshot. His clothes were tattered and stained with blood. When he had dug for 38 hours, he heard the voice of a child from below. "Dad, is it you?" It was his son. He shouted, "Amanda, my son, Dad, is it really you?" "It's me, your dad, my son. I told my classmates to be brave. I told them as long as my dad is alive, he will come to save me, and we can all be saved, because you have told me you will be with me whatever happens. How are you now? How many children are still alive?" "There are altogether 14 classmates here, all alive. We were in the corner of the classroom and have all been spared from the earthquake because the collapsed ceiling has formed a triangle and we were not hit. The father shouted, "There are 14 children here, all alive. Please come and help them." People passing by made haste to help the children. 50 minutes later, a safe opening was created and all the children were saved. This is a real story, which conveys to us a message. Faith and trust is a tremendous invisible power. With faith and trust in mind, we can survive disasters. The faith in this story can be seen in two sentences. One is said by the father, "I will always be with you no matter what happens." The other is uttered by the child, "As long as my dad is still alive, he will come to save me." The mutual trust between father and son has made it possible for them both to survive the disaster and become reunited. Just imagine, if the father had no trust in the son, neither did the son in his father, then the hope for the survival of the 14 children would have been extremely slim. There was once a couple who loved each other deeply. One day when the wife discovered that her husband had stuffed some money into the hands of a pretty woman, she became suspicious of her husband, speculating that he had been unfaithful to her and the family. Ever since then, she had always been wary of him. Any of her husband's contact with women would arouse her suspicion, and she would throw a tantrum. And her husband came to be tired of all this and ended their marriage with divorce. Who was the woman into whose hand the husband had stuffed money? You may ask. She was the husband's sister. Because the wife stood very far from them and could not see clearly, all that she could make out was a woman standing with her husband. This is the tragedy caused by mistrust. The mistrust between men can do great damage to their affections and friendship for each other and hurt each other deeply. Mistrust will cause a rift in the perfect things and turn the paradise into a hell. During the spring and autumn and the Warring State period, there was a famous person called Wu Zixu, who was a person of no trust. On his exile from the persecution of the king of Wu State, he was helped by an old fisherman who assisted him in crossing the river. After crossing the river, he was afraid that the fisherman might give him away, so he told him, "If the pursuers came here, don't tell them about my whereabouts." Hearing this, the old fisherman uttered a sigh of grief. "I feel compassion for the wrong you have been subjected to and helped you to cross the river, and yet is suspected by you. Then let me die to dispel your suspicion." With that, he killed himself by jumping into the river. Think for yourself, he had managed to save you at the risk of his own life, and yet you didn't trust him. How great is the humiliation to his noble character! A word of mistrust has caused the miserable death of a person. The mistrust between men is nothing less than a dagger that kills people without spilling blood. Wu Zixu was skeptical by nature. He had caused the death of the old fisherman, and during his subsequent fugitive life, he met with a yarn-washing woman who had sympathy with him and offered him food. This time, he once again was overwhelmed with mistrust and told the woman at his departure, "Please don't tell others your encounter with me." After this, he left but looked back only to find that the woman had already killed herself by jumping into the river with a stone in her hands. During the middle of 1980s, I went to Xinhua bookstore in Lanzhou to buy some books. While I was at the door of the bookstore, a saleswoman barred my way, saying that she wanted to have a look at my bag. Instantly, I felt the indignation and humiliation of being wronged and ill-treated, and shed tears of misery. My goodness, she has taken me for a thief. Since childhood, my grandma and parents had told me, "You should never take other people's things without permission, no matter how poor or how miserable you are." Why should I be doubted by anyone without any reason at all? Ever since, I have never been to the Xinhua bookstore in Lanzhou. 3 years ago, when I was shopping at a supermarket of the MT Pleasant Business Center in Harare, I handed at the checkout counter a stack of money about over 100,000 yuan to a black cashier. He put the money inside the cash register without counting it. I asked him, "Why don't you count it?" He answered, "I trust you." I was so moved and overjoyed at the time, as if I was already in the heavenly kingdom. I would have hugged and kissed him. Ever since I have a greater liking for Harare and the people there in Zimbabwe. I hope that people shall build the basic trust in each other. Only with trust can people build close relations with each other, and only with trust can people build a bright future. Ungrounded mistrust is a sharp killing dagger. Please don't raise the butchering dagger recklessly. 要想没有痛苦改变人生观价值观. In order to get rid of afflictions, change your outlook on life and value. 写评. The sea of suffering is boundless. The sea of tribulation is caused by the wrong outlook on life and values. To get yourself away from the abyss of suffering, you must thoroughly change your wrong outlook on life and values. One cannot get rid of the worries and troubles of life by possessing more money, greater fame, higher position, or more beauties. On the contrary, such possessions can only add to one's distress, which will increase with the increase of your possession of these things. The traditional family is a sea of misery. The affliction between husband and wife originates from the mutual possession, the necessary results of which are afflictions. The ultimate way to eliminate distress is to give up possession and have nothing. Life is but a journey of life in the human world. The more one wants to possess, the more tiring the journey would be. To get rid of distresses, we must change the traditional outlook on life and values. Learn to be independent. Do not try to control others or have yourself controlled by others. Traditional culture always emphasizes mutual dependence. Actually, once man attempts to depend on something, he will try to manage and control the thing he depends upon, which will necessarily lead to afflictions. For example, if husband and wife always depend on each other and always try to use their own outlook on life and values to transform the other party, and always attempt to have the other party act and behave according to their own wills, then both parties will be landed in a miserable situation. Therefore, man must learn to be independent. The earlier one becomes independent, the less distress one will suffer. Give up possession and believe in and rely on the home without marriage and family. According to traditional outlook on life, the more one possesses, the better one fares. As a result, man is always trying various means to amass possessions all his life. For this purpose, he is always kept on the run, attracted by the possession of money and property, fame and possession, and lovers, and so on. In fact, possession is not a very good thing. Once one possesses something, he will become the slave of the thing that he possesses. In particular, man should not own each other. The outlook on life that you are mine is wrong, because the one that is possessed will feel that his liberty of life is restricted, and will as a result rebel consciously or unconsciously, which will necessarily lead to afflictions for both parties. Chanyuan Celestial already owns the home without marriage and family, which takes care of their food, clothing, shelter, transportation, life, health, and death. So they should love the home, rely on the home, and shift completely from the reliance on man to reliance on and belief in the home. Be responsible for yourself instead of complaining against others. I am doing this all for your good. This is a wrong outlook on life, which has actually added invisible burden of spirit and soul on people served, and also has brought many worries and unhappiness to oneself. Man should first be responsible for himself. Only if one is happy and pleasant himself can he bring happiness and pleasure to others. A person who is unhappy and unpleasant himself can never bring happiness and pleasure to others, no matter how sincerely he has been working for the good of others. If you feel that you are doing things for the good of others, then you are placing a hope and expectation on them. When they do not conform to your will in their actions and words, you will surely feel unbearable, miserable, resentful, and desperate. Facts have proved that one of the major sources of the misery of life is the outlook on life that one should first be responsible for others instead of for oneself. Do not dwell on the past, but look forward to the future. Whatever you have achieved in the past, it is only the track of your life and the arrangement of fate, and you cannot help it. The Bodhisattvas do not pride themselves on the merits and virtues